Hey, Kim here. It's time to do the Adult Racer Tank by Lowland Kids. So excited for an adult pattern. So I'm going to be doing the tie back version. And so as I'm doing my all the different pattern pieces, you'll see that I have 2 pieces for the back piece. If you're not doing the tie back version, you'll just have 1 for the back. Then there'll be 1 front piece, 1 neckband, and 2 armbands. I put tape on the right side of my fabric so I would know when I'm doing right sides versus wrong sides. So the very first step is to press and sew along that curve of the inside seam. We're just going to be hemming this, and at the bottom you can kind of see how it perfectly lines up on the edge there, the way that you cut it out and everything. So just make sure that you fold it that 5/8 of an inch so that it perfectly meets up with the other side. And we're just going to go ahead and pin it all the way down. Just hemming it 5/8 of an inch. I'll be using a serger and a cover stitch for most things today, but you can totally use your sewing machine. Just make sure to use a zigzag stitch and a double needle. Okay, both of these were hemmed using my cover stitch machine. By the way, I just wanted to show you that I recently got rainbow thread and I'm so excited about it. It's so cute. Okay, so once that's done, the next step is to lay them both with the right sides up and overlap them, just aligning the hemmed edge a little bit with the notch at the neckline, and sew a base stitch along both layers. So I have a marking. It's pretty dim, you can't see it that well, but I knew where to put each hemmed edge, and then pin it and go ahead and baste that in place. You can also trim that excess. I didn't do it right away. I think I did it later on the serger, but you can do that before as well. So next I'm taking the front piece and I'm going to attach it or line it up here on the shoulder seams. And I'm going to sew both of them because I plan to apply my bands as a band and not as binding. If you prefer to do binding, just do one shoulder seam first, then attach the binding and then sew the other shoulder seam. So I'm taking my band right sides together and I'm going to sew that together as well because I like to do my bands in the round. That's my preference. So the next step once the band is sewn together is to find the 4 points on the shirt, center front, center back, and then the 2 side points that are all equidistance apart. So we call this like quartering the neckline. So I just put my pins together from the front and back seams, and then that's how I find my side seam. Just know that your shoulder seam is like never the middle points, so you need to make sure you find the right spot. And then do the same thing with the band, and then match up the 4 different pins that you have put together. And that's how you know that you'll be evenly dispersing the band around the neckline. And once you have them all matched up, go ahead and take it to the serger or your sewing machine with a zigzag stitch. Here is a more clear view of what it looks like. Also, make sure that the band is placed on the right side of your tank. Okay, so that is done, and I will do the finishing touches later, but you will want to do a cover stitch to give a more finished look afterwards. Okay, so next I am lining up the side seams, and I'm going to go ahead and sew those down as well. Once again, if you want to do the binding method, then first attach the bands as binding, but I'm going to do them in the round. So once again, just putting my bands right sides together, and I'm going to sew them in place. The reason I prefer to do them in the round is because I don't do very well at matching up the seams when you have to close up the side seam or the shoulder seam at the end. I just feel like they always get off, and that bothers me a little bit more than having to do things in the round. I just like doing it in the round. That's my preference. Now, if you are going to do it in the round, then when you go to set up your 4 quarters, make one of them the side seam so that you can match up the seams on your band and on the tank. So I'm going to take the seam and the seam together and line those up, and that's how I'm going to place it. So just a little tip there, just to kind of make it all have the lines be in the same places, make it all clean looking. Now, I will say solid fabric makes it sometimes harder to see where the right side is versus the wrong side. If you're having a hard time with this and you need more details, then feel free to check out some other videos. I'll link them above that have a more detailed look of how to do bands. All right, so once those are all done, we're nearly finished. And there's just a few finishing touches we have to do. So we're gonna top stitch along the curve there so that we put the seam downward. See how I'm folding it downward? And I'm gonna top stitch on there using my cover stitch machine and go all the way around the armbands and the neckband, as well as hem the bottom. And the way that you fold up the bottom so that it looks nice is a little bit tricky, so I'll take it slow and try to show you that part, but you're just gonna hem from one end all the way down around to the other end of the tie. So here's a close-up. You're gonna take that edge, fold it across, and then fold it down. Once again, fold it across and fold it down. And that just gives a really nice clean finish when you are done. If you're having a hard time visualizing it or seeing what I did in my video, there's a pretty good picture of it in the instructions. So hopefully between the two, you can figure it out. Then go ahead and just fold or press your hem 5/8 of an inch. I'm sticking all my pins in there, and then I'm gonna take this to the cover stitch and do the 4 different areas at the cover stitch machine. I wanted to give a few tips at the cover stitch machine just to help you come out with the most beautiful finishes possible. I feel like I'm always learning as I go, so I'm not perfect, but I have learned a few things. One of the things is even if you did not hem everything up exactly evenly, it's more important to follow the edge of wherever you did hem it as you go along the machine, so that from the front side, from the right side, the hem looks even all the way around. Even if on the inside it's not perfectly even, you want the outside to look good. That's the most important part. And then the other tip I was going to give was just when we're doing, like the neckband here or the armbands, you want to make sure that you're following this seam line right here. Have that be your guide, so that once again, the lines that are created with the cover stitch machine are even. So the purpose of this is actually to help hold the seam down in place so that the seam doesn't try to flip up. I don't know if you've ever had a shirt that flips up on you. It's really annoying. And so if you can put this stitch around the neckbands, or in this case, the armbands as well, then it helps to hold the stitch in place. And it also just has a really nice professional finish. And then the last tip that I have for you is if you are using a cover stitch or even a double needle, I like to split up those threads so that as I overlap it slightly, they don't get tangled in. And so just really simple, but those are a couple things that I like to do. All right, here's the finished product and my feet. Wow, adult clothing is really hard to photograph because it's so much bigger than kid clothing. But here's a little bit of a closer up look from the front, and then here's the back with it all tied up. And man, this turned out so cute. It was really, really fun to make. Honestly, pretty simple and easy, and I'd say very beginner. Anyone could do it. So there's my front and back, and then here it is on. I love it. Can't wait to work out in it. I think it'll motivate me to want to go out even more. Follow me on social media if you'd like to learn any more. My Instagram is Come Create with Kim. Well, hey, I hope you learned something today, and I hope you love this pattern. We'll talk to you next time. See ya.